Yuji Itadori. Where do I begin? What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here, and welcome to Thoughts On, aka a series where a long-term yapper attempts to condense his thoughts on one singular thing, in this case characters, for the first time. I'm testing it with characters first. We'll see if I can stretch it out to other things like Kingdom Hearts stuff, but I want to give myself 10 minutes or less to discuss everything about my thoughts on a specific topic. I'm starting with Yuji, because he should be simple, and should be good practice. And now if you're wondering, long-term yapper man, why are you doing this out of nowhere? This seems a little bit random. It is literally because I'm planning something else where I need to get my short-term yapping skills under control. So let's not waste any more time. Let's start this juicy scribbling up his 10-minute timer, and let's get right into it. So, Yuji Itadori. What are my thoughts on the character as a whole? I'll break this out into 3 little sections. The first thing will be narrative purpose, then character purpose, then power scaling. Because, admittedly, I'm disgusting, I'm filthy, I love me some good old-fashioned juicy power scaling. So, narratively, what is Yuji Itadori and how do I feel about it? Obviously, he's the main character. And I feel like Yuji as the main character has shifted a whole lot in the fandom. Like, for the longest time, people were mostly neutral about him. Then he was kind of disliked for a majority of the fan base. And then, sort of towards the end, when he got his power-ups and his amps, and was in Black Flashes, and went crazy, and defeated Zuka, like, he kind of got an aura resurrection. For me, though, I've always loved Yuji. Like, notably, as a main character, he's my favorite type. AKA the one who just isn't the strongest and is nowhere near the strongest. Like, don't get me wrong, the definitely is leaning into the power scaling aspect of it, but specifically in a narrative role, I find overpowered main characters boring. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, they're just boring. So thusly, when you give me Yuji Itadori, a major character, the main character, who is definitely strong, like is glazed from round start before he gets cursed energy to be strong, but he's not actually the strongest. And even by EOS, he's not seemingly the strongest. I know there are going to be some people who are going to be like, but Yuji, we'll talk about that in the power scaling section because I do have opinions on that too, but very specifically, for how Yuji fulfills his narrative role, I think it's great. I think it's perfect. I would literally change nothing. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, because a lot of people are really unsatisfied with Yuji as the main character. A lot of people think he takes sidelined a little bit too much by the narrative. A lot of people think he really shouldn't have been the one to beat Sukuna. A lot of people think a bunch of different things about Yuji, but for me in particular, considering this is my thoughts on, I think Yuji works for the story that JJK is trying to tell. Very specifically, a story about not seeking isolation through strength, but seeking connection and power through said connection. Right? That makes absolutely no sense. See, this is why I need practice. But ultimately, Yuji, if he was much stronger, if he was infinitely more broken, if he did have a better control over his curse techniques, it wasn't just a punching kick version for a majority of the series, and didn't need the help of everybody and anybody to do anything, then, like, the themes would hit a lot worse. The overarching themes of, like, loneliness and strength and what it means to have strength, what it means to have connection, like, the fundamental groundwork of the overall narrative that is JJK would suffer infinitely more if someone else was the main character. I'm specifically thinking of Yuta because he was the former main character, but notably, the themes of JJK 0 and the themes of main JJK are so fundamentally different that you really can't overlap them. Don't get me wrong, I get why people love inserting Yuta as the main character. I've seen people try to write Megami as the main character. I've seen people try to write Gojo as the main character. I know people who are delusional to think that Gojo is the main character. But ultimately, narratively, Yuji is perfectly fixed where he is. I wouldn't give him more time. I wouldn't give him less time. I would keep everything the same. And he's one of the few characters in JJK where I can just definitively say that we're like, start to finish, I kind of like his distribution. Because notably, whenever he's not in the narrative, he's still affecting the narrative by simply existing. And that, in my opinion, is how you write a main character who's powerful, who's important, who's the nexus point of the plot, yet at the same time, isn't actually the nexus point of the plot to where he's literally breaking it every time he's on screen. If you know Dragon Ball, you know Goku kind of breaks the plot every time he's on screen. If you know Naruto kind of breaks the plot every time he's on screen. Like, essentially, these more powerful main characters who have much more heft and narrative weight within their own stories, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Naruto or Goku or any overpowered MC is innately bad, but to me personally, as a guy who likes my narratives more balanced around a larger cast of characters and not just over-centralized around a main character, Yuji Itadori, narratively, perfectly positioned, beautiful, chef's kiss, scrumdiddlyumptious. Let's talk about Yuji Itadori as a character, though. How do I feel about him? I like him, but do I love him? I'm 50-50 on if I like him or if I love him. And that sounds crazy, right? Especially after glazing his narrative role and narrative existence so much. How can I be like so unsure on whether or not I like him or I love him? It's mainly because I feel like Yuji's major developments as a character are sort of... It's weird because I said I wouldn't give it any more time. But since they're spaced out so much, and considering the nature of how it's applied, I find myself agreeing with Yuji in a lot of ways, but disagreeing with him on a bunch of ways. But ultimately, I think that does make me like him, if not love him as a character, right? Because ultimately, I want to be able to not just see myself in the main character, I also want to be able to see the character in the main character. And seeing Yuji's own complicated journey about, like, his own morality, his own mortality, how he feels about himself in relation to the rest of the world, how he feels about others in relation to the rest of the world, and how the impacts that they have on it can be manipulated by him, such as the case with Sukuna, such as the case with Megami, such as the case with Nobara, and basically everyone else in the plot. That kind of character writing does actually make me love him. Yeah, that's the thing. I was trying to be a little bit not so Yuji Glaze heavy, but, like, I think I do just like it so much because it is such a deep, interesting conflict. Because notably, a lot of stories do deal in mortality, but it's not usually with the main character, ironically enough. But Yuji Itadori's whole story starts with, you're going to die. So what will you do with your life until that point? And as a person who thinks about his own mortality on occasion, I mean, not as much as I used to, but as a person who thinks about his own mortality, thinks about the value of life, thinks about how ultimately the fragility and inability of life to be eternal ultimately gives it more value than it hypothetically could have if it were eternal, even though I am personally fine with the idea of eternal life. If everyone got it, I like it. It's an interesting thing, especially considering we have our main antagonists, both of them, both Kenjaku and Sukuna, both being characters who reject the fundamental nature of the world and deal heavily in death and life and taking life and giving death. And, like, ultimately the way that Yuji plays into that as a character and how his own mortality and morality and ideals bounce off of Sukuna, our main antagonist, and even Kenjaku indirectly, our secondary main antagonist and the in-universe author of JJK. Beautiful stuff. It's delicious, it's scrumptious. I love Yuji as a character as well. And ultimately, would I add anything to him? No. And I think the main reason I wouldn't add anything to him is the same reason I wouldn't, like, give him more screen time. It's just that I think if you give him a little bit too much more, like give him more influence, or like try to stretch out his character arc even more, you would have to make the series longer. And, like, clearly that was just never in the cards for JJK. So as he is now, I wouldn't really alter anything about Yuji. But now it's time for the final part, the power scaling. I don't think Yuji's the strongest by EOS, and I think that's kind of the point. Now, you may be like, whoa, Pencil Man. The man's got 2 techniques. He's got soul damage. He's got multiple types of soul interaction. He's awakened. He has shrine. He has this, he has that. He's all so crazy, Bukamon. That's all cool. It's so hypothetical, though. Like it is so hypothetical, and there are 15 different arguments you can make. Don't get me wrong, I see the arguments for Yuji being top 1, based on, like, stats and scaling and upscaling from Sukuna and bada bing bada boom. I see it, but in the power scaling sense, ultimately, I think it would make less sense if Yuji was actually the strongest by EOS. I think, like, Yuta kinda has to be. Which is weird to say, especially considering, you know, Yuji's meant to fulfill the Gojo role, quote-unquote, guiding the next generation in his own way with his own ideals. But still, I think you can do that and not actually be the strongest. Just like Gojo, who wasn't actually the strongest in history, and today, still ended up guiding the future with his own ideals. Like, that's the thing. I think Yuji and Gojo parallel each other very, very well in that sense. And just like, technically, I don't think Gojo's number 1 in the verse. I think he's second to Sukuna. I don't think Yuji is number 1 in the verse by the end of it. I think he's second to Yuta. I think there may be other characters who could beat Yuji. I think Yuji, you could make a solid argument Yuji ain't even top 5. Okay, maybe not top 5. Can I name 5 characters stronger than Yuji? I could, but I do want to save that for a separate video. See, that's the thing about writing scripts and talking about something like that. Like, I'm thinking a plot. But overall, power scaling wise, I am happy with Yuji, but I definitely do think he's actually getting a little bit too much glaze. Like he's having a stronger and more long-lasting version of the Higuruma effect, where I don't think Higuruma is anywhere near as strong as a lot of people think Higuruma is. But now that's happening to Yuji, and it's because of, like, funnily enough, it's because of the narrative stuff that happens and the techniques he awakens. But what I'll say this, because once again, I don't want to spoil, like, future versus battles I'm working on, but I want you to ask yourself, if Yuji has soul damage, how effective and fast acting is it? Is it the best, the worst, mid-tier? Tell me how effective Yuji's soul damage is based on the times we've seen it used against Mahito and Sukuna. And on top of that, show me anything in regards to Yuji using anywhere near the full depth of his potential. A hypothetical full potential, fully realized Yuji, we can talk about that. I love talking about a hypothetical full power, absolute limits to the moon, final Yuji, but the man's domain expansion doesn't even have a name. I can't be giving a man with no domain name crazy clout in the top tiers and upper echelons. Like, I don't know. Power scaling wise, I've been happy with Yuji's placement. I will always be happy with Yuji's placement. I think Yuji's placement actually ends up feeding into his character work and the narrative even better. So like, I'm not mad at all with it. But with that being the case, I see the Yuji glaze. It's rising, getting stronger. But I have 20 seconds left. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this first edition of my thoughts on Yuji Itadori in particular. Of course, this is going to be like a little, I'm not sure if it's going to be a mini-series, because once again, I do want to like focus on characters, and I do want to talk about plots, I do want to talk about other different things. But I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that little notification bell. I almost forgot. If you made it all the way to the end of this relatively quick video, I think 10 minutes is pretty quick. Leave King's Hollow Throne in the comment section down below. But now I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you're going to have a Patreon down below, or you can support me for as low as $1 now a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reactions, the other series I have to review, and variations of all my videos. And if you become a $20 patron or a $20 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, the link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below. You drop 5 views for a short video, 20 views for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off. I'd like to thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Super Flame Zero, Glacier XZ, Zara, Brandon Payne, J2MA, Gyomi, Yuki Ally, Buddha Uda, Azo 2404, Planet Crone, G Prosper, Nevis 97, and Ollie. I'd like to give a big old thank you to our line art tier patrons: Sean, Nirvana Igneel, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, and A+A. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our Inc. tier members: Fine, Austin Wimberly, Euchia, Carlo Alaimo, and Grim. And then I'd like to give a big old hefty thank you to our digital art tier members: Jay Warrior and AZ Void. And then I'd like to give a big old thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Waki Munoz and Waki Munoz. And then I'd finally like to give a giga super duper kidney sacrificing thank you to our ultimate, that guy with a heart on the horizon, Calvin Elder.